Dancing in the Street is a 1964 song written by Marvin Gaye, Ivy Jo Hunter, and William Stevenson for the group Martha and the Vandellas. On its release, it would reach number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100, cementing itself into the canon of American popular music. Over the course of many subsequent years, it would be covered by a variety of artists. This would include the Kinks, the Mamas and the Papas, the Grateful Dead, Van Halen, and even David Bowie and Mick Jagger. It would be this version by Bowie and Jagger that would be the most successful, outside of the original, of course. This version would go down in infamy as being, well, rather campy. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Now, why am I bringing all of this up? Well, because right here in front of me is the original 35mm camera negative to Dancing in the Street. That would mean that this film right here is the very film that was in the camera when shooting with Bowie and Jagger back in 1985. Or at least I think it is. More on that later. With this negative, I had it digitized at beyond 4K resolution and painstakingly remastered. Now I know what you're thinking. Really? Of all the music videos to find in the store, it's this one? Yes. Before I go any further, I should probably introduce myself. Hello, I'm Jack. I'm a filmmaker, photographer, and archivist. This film has been a pet project of mine for coming up on 8 years now, the story of which is long, convoluted, and very technical. However, I think it's interesting. The further I dug in, the weirder it all got. I can honestly say, and this is a bold claim, that I am the world's expert on this music video. So, I'd like to go over the history of it, and my process of restoring it. Let's begin. It's summer 1985, and the biggest event of the year, Live Aid, is shaping up. The charity music event is billed as one concert, 2 continents, with simultaneous performances taking place in Wembley Stadium, London, and John F. Kennedy Stadium in Philadelphia. An estimated 2 billion people would tune in on the radio or on television broadcasts, 40% of the world's population at that point. David Bowie and Mick Jagger were approached with the concept to do a cross-ocean duet with Bowie in London and Jagger in Philly, connected live via satellite link. However, it would mean that one of the two would have to mime their part because there'd be a half-second delay. If you can believe it, neither were willing to do that and the plan was scrapped. Instead, a music video would be shot and shown at each venue. This would be
Dancing in the Street.
How long ago did you do that?
I think it's like 10 days ago. It was a real kind of...
We thought about it on a Thursday night, and we read lots of rumours about us doing the satellite thing. We'd already checked out on that.
We went in the recording studio at 8, and we finished the track by 11.
And knocked off a record between 7 and 11 on Saturday night.
And you're going to say, it sounds like it. And then
we went over to the Docklands and shot the video for the rest of the night. So we did the whole thing in 10 hours.
So the whole thing took like 12 hours, which is the way I prefer to do it.
So, just like that, over the course of an evening, a song and video were created whole cloth and then broadcast around the world 2 weeks later. If you think that's an incredibly short time frame to do such a task, you're not the only one. David Mallet, the director of the video, said, "Everybody chucked ideas in, and it was all joined together with bits shot in sheer desperation." On July 13th, 1985, immediately following the now legendary performance by Queen, Chevy Chase would take to the stage to premiere the video.
One of the great classics, Dancing in the Streets. Mick Jagger and David Bowie. Watch the screen.
And the crowd loved it. Following Live Aid, the video would be blasted over MTV, being in heavy rotation, and the single released, becoming a #1 hit in the UK and reaching number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100. That summer, the music video would also be shown in movie theaters before films like Back to the Future.
David Bowie and Mick Jagger dancing in the streets.
The following year, at the 1986 MTV Music Video Awards, Dancing in the Street would take home the award for Best Overall Performance. No, really, this is an award-winning music video. The following years, Dancing in the Street would take on a different reputation. Due to its extemporaneous production and flamboyant performances, it was ripe for mockery. My first exposure to the video, and a good chance yours too, was of course when it was played in its entirety on Family Guy.
1985 brought us the gayest music video of all time. That happened, and we all let it happen.
This new exposure to an internet-savvy generation, divorced from context, gave way to it being hailed as one of the worst music videos of all time by online publications. Additionally, after the Family Guy airing in 2011, a small internet trend would emerge where people would parody the video, oftentimes by recreating it shot for shot. After all you need is one interior location, one street, and two actors. The slapdash, zero-budget, campy nature of the video translates surprisingly effectively into a YouTube video you can make in under 2 hours. The other popular joke with Dancing in the Street is the silent music video, where the music is replaced with dubbed, natural sound. There are 2 videos on YouTube with a combined 16 million views. If you're under the age of 40 and didn't see the video on Family Guy, you probably saw one of these. Allegedly, Bowie himself was a fan of this dubbed version. I would find out later that the person that sold me this negative bought the contents of a shuttered film production company called Music Motions. Remember earlier when I said Dancing in the Street played before Back to the Future? You may have been scratching your head and thinking to yourself, wait, they showed music videos in movie theaters? Yes, they did. Although they're not called music videos, they're called music zaps. Throughout the course of making this video, I was actually able to get in touch with the former president of Music Motions, Tom Hayes. Therefore, here's a brief history of Music Motions told by the man himself.
Music Motions went from 1984 to 1987. And in that time, from 84 to 87, there's the inception of the idea. I, was young, I was dating, I took my date to see a movie called The Big Chill. And I looked up at the screen and there was nothing there. And I said to her, wouldn't this be better with music videos showing on the big screen? MTV had just come out earlier, so everybody was talking music videos. And it just seems so logical that there should be music videos in a movie theater. Our whole premise was that this was going to be a competitive tool against the big theater chains. If the small independent had something extra and there was a choice to go out, they would go see the Carly Simon video as a plus, as an added value. And we didn't call them videos, we called them zaps because they weren't on video. The whole premise to Music Motions was quality. This was 35 millimeter negative, kept intact. So anything that was a point of difference from what was presented on MTV was an asset for us. And we went to that much trouble to actually finish at our expense, thinking that down the road our business model of renting to theaters would eventually pay off. But that was naive.
Music Motion's business model was an uphill battle. Funding all the costs was difficult, unless, of course, somebody could pick up the tab.
We ended up waiting quite a bit of time until one day, Michael Domican, who was our rep, waltzed in and said 2 words, Live Aid. And he was on the verge of signing Eastman Kodak and AT&T to sponsor the Live Aid event. David Bowie and Mick Jagger's Dancing in the Street was not well defined yet. I think they shot that right up to the last minute. I mean, it was kind of a last minute thing that happened. So we didn't really know that we were going to be doing this milestone distribution until after Live Aid. And then the advertising agency that handled Eastman Kodak, J. Walter Thompson, found out that this was going to happen. So by the time David Bowie and Mick Jagger came along, there was not much hesitation in the opportunity to put that video into movie theaters as a official Live Aid video with a plea to call an 800 number. And they came up with this nice kind of fluffy opening with nice pictures from Live Aid. And that was always kind of like the thing about music videos. Was it entertainment or was it a commercial? You know, and at the end of the day, it really was, they were made to promote record sales. So yes, in that respect, they were commercials. But they were also used to raise money to feed hungry people in Africa, like Live Aid.
Okay, so I acquired the negative from Music Motions. What's the actual restoration process like? Well, step 1 is to inspect the negative. This can help me identify if this is a duplicate or an original, and to see if there's any dust or damage that I need to know about. Looking at it, you see the entire film as an orange base. If this was internegative or CRI, you might be seeing something different. Similarly, if this was duplicated from another element, you could get print through, where edge markings of the original are printed onto the new stock. There is none of that here. Finally, we can spot splices. Usually, you only physically cut your camera negatives. When you print it, the splices disappear, and instead of being many individual pieces of film attached together, it's now one continuous strip.
Wow, this is I'm sorry, this is just thrilling. I don't know what to say.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to identify what the actual emulsion of the negative was. What this would mean is it would tell me if it was either lab stock or camera stock. Camera stock would mean it's the original negative. Lab stock would mean that it would be a duplicate of some sort. I was able to talk to a couple professionals that work with this material regularly. Unfortunately, no one is able to confirm what I was hoping. All that I can say is this is at the very least a production used element that is higher quality than, let's say, a print. Now, let's get to digitizing. This step has to be done at either a lab or post-production house. Any place that has a film scanner, really. I would choose to have it scanned on a laser graphics scan station by the Negative Space out in Colorado. I would do it at 6.5K full aperture with a 2-flash HDR pass at 10-bit color in a ProRes 4x4 codec. What this all means is that the scan includes beyond the edge of the image with sprocket, so that way I can get full control of how the image is framed. 6.5K is plenty of resolution to finish at 4K, with a 2-flash scan, meaning each frame is scanned twice and combined, reducing digital noise and capturing the full dynamic range of the film more accurately. 10-bit color has 64 times more color than standard 8-bit, and a ProRes 4x4 file is virtually lossless, meaning no digital compression artifacting will be introduced. I could have sprung further, going up to a 10K 3-flash scan at 16-bit color with DNG files and a wet gate. However, price and file sizes start to go up exponentially, and for doing this solo, for what will most likely be a web finish, what I chose is more than acceptable. Even if you wanted to show this in a theater on a massive screen, the quality of my scan will be there. And when I got it back, this is what I was greeted with. Seeing this for the first time was mind-blowing. There are a couple of standouts. This was shot 4perf standard 35mm, meaning the aspect ratio is Academy, or 1.375 to 1, pretty close to 4x3. You may notice the image isn't centered. There's space on the left where the soundtrack will be printed at a later generation for projection. Ah, the soundtrack. Right. If only I had that too. Well, as it turns out, I do. I was able to buy it from the same seller. He sold me what's known as full coat mag. Full coat mag means it looks like a standard piece of 35mm, except there's no picture. For where the picture is, it's actually brownish. It looks like almost a cassette tape, because it is. It's magnetic audio. With this being a cut negative, which should be conformed to the final edit, all I need to do is drop the soundtrack in and voila, everything should work fine. So when I went to do that, that wasn't the case. So what's going on here? Well, it's two things really. As alluded to by Tom Hayes earlier, when Dancing in the Street was released in theaters, it had clips at the beginning and end promoting Live Aid. My negative here does not include those. However, this audio was included on the mag, funnily enough. So if I take that audio away and just try to sync up the music, it still doesn't work. The other thing is that this negative was conformed in a really non-traditional way. If we go to each cut, they don't land where they're supposed to. They're sequenced correctly, however each one has a few extra seconds at the beginning and end, like bumpers. It's kind of neat because I get to see some stuff I'm not supposed to. With this clip here, if you look really closely, you can see a production assistant with a cigarette. Another one here, for instance, is at this shot. The moment after where the cut is supposed to be, you can see David Bowie break character. Fun! Another issue is present, or rather not present, which are the opticals. Opticals are effects that are done at a lab. In the case of Dancing in the Street, this is going to be frame holds, frame dissolves, and pretty famously, frame retiming of Bowie and Jagger's butts at the end of the film. This isn't a huge deal as I can recreate them digitally, although I will run into a couple issues. For instance, the film opens with a frame hold of this brick wall. Now, in the negative, I have a few seconds of this brick wall, which means hundreds of frames that I could pick from. If I want this to be frame perfect, I'm going to need to somehow figure out which frame they used for their frame hold. Now, if only I could get into the head of the editor to see what they were thinking and figure out which frame I need to pick. Well, luckily, I will be able to do that, because not only did I get the negative and the full coat mag, I also got the work print, which is right here. Work prints give a great insight on what the editor is doing, and interestingly enough, this work print is indeed the final conformed edit. While the opticals aren't present, the editor wrote directly onto the film with a greased pencil, marking exactly how they want them done. For instance, I can find out that this frame here was the one that was used for the frame hold. I can also see here that this cut is a frame hold and then a cross dissolve. And the butts. Well, I can see what frame it starts on and what frame it ends, and how many to duplicate. Also, about those missing clips of Live Aid from the negative, here they are present in the work print. And if you're wondering, yes, if I drop the mag audio on it, it syncs up perfectly.
The best in recording talent that this planet has to offer, joined together in an unprecedented celebration of giving. Keeping that feeling, that spirit alive is vital.
Okay, really quick side note here, but the audio from those bumpers you're hearing is temp audio. It's funny, the actual mag here says that it is the print master, which to me would imply that it's the master for printing. You can even hear a person right at the beginning of this tape state as much.
This is Live Aid, version 1, final print master, A and B tracks only.
Although, when you listen to an actual final print, this is what those bumpers are supposed to sound like.
Once in a great while, an event of such significance comes along that not to remember it would be unthinkable. Live Aid was that event, the best in recording talent that this planet has to offer, joined together in an unprecedented celebration of giving. Keeping that feeling, that spirit alive, is vital.
Notice the much deeper, sultry voice. So I don't know exactly what's going on here, or even if the actual audio of the music is the final mix, but this is all I have. I noticed something weird was going on with the audio. It sounded, well, slowed down. I took a look investigating it, and, well, sure enough it was. If you play it side by side with the original, you can pretty clearly notice something's up. Well, as it turned out, this would be because the music video was being played at the wrong frame rate. It shouldn't be 24 frames per second, which is the common frame rate for pretty much everything shown in a movie theater. It should be 25 frames per second, which is the standard for PAL television, which is Europe and most of the world outside of North America and Japan. That would mean when this was shown in movie theaters, it was being shown at 24 frames per second, which means in theaters you are hearing that slowed down audio. The music was incorrect for this music video. I imagine what happened was when they were shooting the video, they didn't think this was actually going to end up in theaters. They probably thought it was only going to go to television, which would mean 25 frames per second would be fine. Obviously, this is something I can easily fix. I can just play back the video at 25 frames per second, which is what I did. I just find it really funny that of all the other wacky things going on with this music video, being shown at the wrong frame rate is just another thing to throw on the pile. So, now that that's all behind us, let's get to the actual restoration. I would begin by trying to use DaVinci Resolve to not much success. They do have dedicated dust busting tools, but they weren't quite powerful enough for the work I wanted to do. If you already have DaVinci Resolve and maybe have some home movies that you want to get restored, I would definitely say give it a shot. However, if you want to do anything extensive, there are better options. For that, I would turn to a tool called PF Clean. Used by the likes of the Criterion Collection, IMAX, Sony Pictures, and BBC Studios, this would be the professional piece of software I'd need. Unfortunately, professional software comes with professional pricing. It's $500 per month. $500 per month. Okay, I guess that means I get 1 month. With 25 or so shots, I'd essentially have to do 1 shot a day. Luckily for me, Pixel Farm posted good documentation for me to get up and going with PF Clean. So the clock began. Every day after work, I'd start my second job of cleaning up David Bowie and Mick Jagger. I will admit there was some absurdity to finishing a shot, rendering a preview, going to grab food, and coming back to a looping shot of David and Mick doing absurd dances in stunning 6.5K. Some shots were longer and harder than others, namely the tail end of the roll, which is usually the spot on film that picks up the most wear and dust. So 1 month passed, and by the end, my restoration was nearly complete. I'd bring the files back in Resolve to match the edit to the work print, and to put a color grade onto it. For the grade, I had a lot of sources to look at. Do I make it look like a theatrical print with those colors? Or do I go more to what we're used to, with the tape versions as my guide? I take all these into account and try to find something in the middle, keeping skin tones looking natural and taking advantage of the increased dynamic range available with the negatives. Blacks look deep and rich, something that isn't possible with a tape source. While prints would skew warm, I pulled it back a bit to give it the neutral balance of the Live Aid tape source. Another choice I'd have to make here is choosing the aspect ratio. Originally, when shown at Live Aid and on television, it was in 4:3. However, when Music Motions did their edit and put it into theaters, it was shown in 1.85:1 or widescreen. Music Motions mentions that part of their process is to take music videos shot in 4:3 and convert them to widescreen, which would be a more common shaped image in a theater in the 80s. Being that the video wouldn't have been shot for widescreen in mind, as well as we're all used to seeing the 4:3 version, why throw out the extra image? My recommendation is to use the Academy ratio, or 1.375:1, a touch wider than 4:3, almost identical. I say Dancing in the Street should be shown in all of its glory. Alright, and with it reassembled in Resolve, everything's looking good. When I match it up to the work print, it is frame for frame perfect. You know what's funny? I haven't actually tried to put it next to the original tape version. For Dancing in the Street has 2 different cuts. There's the one that Music Motions did, which is the version that I matched, and then there's the one that's on YouTube, DVD, and other official releases. This is the original Live Aid version and is a different cut. It includes this reaction shot of Mick Jagger, whereas the Music Motions version includes this reaction shot of David Bowie instead. Now, in case you're wondering, I don't have this missing shot of Mick Jagger. It was nowhere in the work print or on the negative, which means I don't know if anyone knows where it is. It might just be stuck in standard definition. For my restoration, I'm going to be sticking to everything on the negative, which means I'm going to be staying with Music Motions edit. Okay, I think that just about covers everything. I mean, there couldn't be anything to possibly come in at the very last second to completely derail what I've been doing, right? Oh, the official David Bowie YouTube channel posted an official 4K restoration. Okay, about that official restoration, before anyone asks, no, I didn't have anything to do with it. I did try reaching out to the official David Bowie estate, however, I didn't get very far. The only real response I was able to get seemed to be from somebody that ran one of the social media pages, and when I showed them that I had this negative, they hit me back with, well, why would we need that? And sent me a link to a Facebook post. This Facebook post showed what appeared to be an HD scan of a 35mm print of Dancing in the Street. Notice how you can see these vertical scratches that are black. Any scratches on a print are going to show up black, whereas any scratches on a negative are going to show up as white. Therefore, I'm to believe that they don't actually have any original elements, but are just using a print to go off of. With that, the restoration they did is really nice. The sharpness and resolution are very close to the negative. Really where the negative wins out is in dynamic range. As you can see in the official restoration, the shadows get crushed pretty quick, whereas on the negative, you can see a lot further into them. Now, could this be due to just color grading? Possibly, but it does seem like they don't have a lot of information to work with when it Okay, that's it. That has to be it. There couldn't possibly be anything else I could talk about in regard to dancing in the street. So, that leaves just one final question. How can you watch my restoration? Well, like I mentioned previously, I tried getting in touch with official contacts to get an official release. It didn't get very far. As a matter of fact, the furthest I was able to get was somebody that does video directly with the Rolling Stones, completely coincidentally. As a matter of fact, I was able to get free tickets off of this person to see the Rolling Stones last year, where I took this picture of Mick Jagger. Look how close I got to Mick Jagger and wasn't able to get his music video back to him. So, where does that leave us? In the words of famous Dr. Henry Jones Jr., it belongs in a museum. So, I've decided I'm going to upload this video to the Internet Archive. I'm not trying to infringe on anybody's copyright, so if someone hits me with a notice to take it down, I will completely oblige. I just don't want this to sit on my hard drive or on a shelf and rot somewhere. I'd like to consider this a gift to the people. And that concludes it. I'd really like to thank Tom Hayes for participating in this video, as well as the many other people scrolling by the side of the screen right now. None of this could have been done without them. This has been an enormous amount of work, but also a lot of fun. I'm just excited for this to finally come out to the world. Thank you.